now, Chair.
Just let me know when, yeah.
We're live.
Hi, well, thank you everybody for attending. Welcome to the Performance Scrutiny Committee meeting, Place and Corporate, Monday the 22nd of March. This meeting, I'm going to try to find the information. This meeting is being recorded. Could I remind members to switch off their mics and possibly cameras when they're not speaking, please. We all know the detail on that, and I think it is available from member services if anybody wants to check it. So I'll leave that where it is as it stands. We've got a few items on the agenda today, mostly reviews. And first of all, Neil, are there any apologies for absence?
No apologies received, Chair.
Okay, cool, thank you. And are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay, so we're going to go over the minutes of the last meeting. If members have any matters arising, as has become custom, we'll leave that till the end of the meeting. And then we can look at those then. So we're going through them for accuracy. First of all, then matters arising will come up at the end of the meeting when we look at our further forward work programme. So we start on page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10 is blank. So the first one we're going to look at is item 4 on the agenda, which is the enforcement of COVID business restrictions. On our papers, they run from page 11 to 20. Who do we have for this? Is it Paul?
This would be Matthew Cridland, Chair.
I'm sorry, Matthew. I do apologise. Hi, Matthew. Thank you for coming. This is an information session so that you can update us. Members may have questions afterwards, but you know it's not a performance related. So we won't be going into any sort of huge detail. So Matthew, what is custom is that you give us an overview for 5 or so minutes, 10 maximum, and then I'll open it up to questions from members. Okay, so over to you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I've been asked to provide a report to make you aware of how officers of licensing and trading standards and other regulatory services have been dealing with businesses over the last year. In March, the country entered lockdown, as everyone knows, and the government introduced restrictions on individuals and businesses, and the council was charged with the enforcement of the customer-facing businesses. So a summary of our outputs. Since the 25th of March 2020, Trading Standards and Licensing have completed the following interactions: provided businesses with advice on 2,500 occasions, completed 3,000 inspections, assessed compliance on 4,200 occasions, and 74% of these were compliant, and 16% became compliant whilst we were there, and 10% required further investigation. So just a quick look at those figures, you can see that 26% of cases, officers found businesses doing something wrong. Then with the enforcement then, with that 10% requiring further investigation, you can see that we've issued 45 premises improvement notices, 7 closure notices, we've requested 3 licence reviews, issued 5 fixed penalty notices, and they're the ones that are £1,000 each, and 10 compliance notices. Partnership working has been really important with all this work. Many of the inspections, particularly with licensed premises, have been done with the police, And we've also been receiving lots of intelligence from colleagues in environmental health who are doing the infection control side of things. So with the initial lockdown, lots of businesses were ordered to close, so cafes, pubs, non-essential goods and so on, and hairdressers, that sort of place. And some businesses were allowed to stay open because they were essential. So it's food retailers, supermarkets, building supplies, that sort of place. Now, if they were allowed to stay open, they still had to make sure everything was safe. So they'd have to control the numbers, entering their premises, control queues, make sure there was social distancing, hygiene and signs had to be sort of appropriate. And that was the first enforcement picture that we faced. So very early on, we were all at home, sort of not able to get out really. So the first item that we did was contact every single business on the database, making sure they knew what was required of them. We set up a duty line so people could inform if they knew of a rule breaker or somebody needed advice. And we also had a response rota, so we were able to get to a business that was breaking the law. And also we were doing patrols, checking businesses were closed. The first problems that we were finding were things like pubs opening up beer gardens for their regulars, which they thought was safe because it was outside, but it was banned, and hairdressers operating at people's homes, that sort of thing, which was also banned. We saw that there were rogue traders and reckless amateurs, I call them, getting involved. So we were dealing with COVID scams, price hiking, businesses refusing refunds for cancelled holidays, unsafe personal protective equipment and unsafe hand sanitizer, and we even had somebody selling counterfeit NHS merchandise, making sort of profit out of the goodwill we all feel for our colleagues in the health service. As the spring became the summer, infections reduced, so then the economy started to open again. We were inspecting essential businesses, making sure that, and these are the food businesses like supermarkets, making sure social distancing was in place, they were managing their queues, that signage was fine and so on. Then non-essential businesses opened. So we were a little bit concerned about this initially because this was a group of businesses who were not used to operating in a pandemic. And also we're only human. Customers, we were really excited about getting out into the shops, and we had seen that there was overcrowding and sort of poorly managed queues in England when they had opened a couple of weeks before us. So in order to get in front of this, all our officers contacted the managers and owners of these businesses. We made sure they knew what was required of us. So by the time they reopened, everything was in order. We spoke to Friars Walk, Kingsway, all those sorts of people. Everybody knew what they had to do to open safely. The next group of businesses that caused us problems were pub gardens and outside hospitality, because these licensed premises were allowed to open, but outside. The licensing team, my colleagues, Alistair Dealing and so on, they identified that out of town pubs and restaurants, they would be okay because they had a bit of space, but our businesses in the city centre would be crammed in by those busy roads. So we got in touch with Highways, City Services, Regeneration, who provided grants for the street furniture, and businesses and the police. And we put together a programme where Highways were able to close those busy roads and try and make in the summer, the place a safe place to dine and to enjoy ourselves. So that was all fine. But then we had our first sort of problem, is that one of our businesses, which was at the nightclub Courtyard on Cambrian Road, despite our sort of best efforts to engage with them, decided to open up their nightclub. So we did an investigation. We saw CCTV where we saw dancing, loud music, DJs playing, and they were open till the early hours. So an investigation was taken to the licensing committee, and the license was suspended for 3 months. So that took a lot of effort. The next group, if I could mention, would be barbers, hairdressers, those sorts of places, close contact businesses, where when they were allowed to reopen, they couldn't exactly have social distancing because in order to do their business, they had to get very close to their clients. So personal protective equipment came to the fore then, and also the guidance that was provided by Welsh Government. So they had quite a lot of rules to contend with. It was appointment only, which was quite difficult for lots of barbers, because it's their business model is that you just walk in. Also, lots of places like this, hairdressers and barbers, they're like social hubs. People go there to socialise and so on. Well, that wasn't allowed. So we found lots of problems with this group of businesses. So we engaged with them, we educated, and then sometimes we had to issue improvement notices. And then everybody improved, which was good. Pubs and cafes opening indoors. This was where it really got interesting as from an enforcement point of view. Very complex, lots of different rules for them to observe. Social distancing. If people sat at a table, they had to be from the same household. And if you think the reason you couldn't wait to get to a pub was so you didn't have to mix with the same household, that was really difficult for the clients and so on. So that proved problematic. There was tracing systems, one-way systems, hygiene safeguards, maximum capacities, serving time restrictions. So you might think that's impossible to get right, but lots and lots of businesses did get it right. It was like about 80% for the licensed trade, because they knew they were a problem or a potential problem, so they really focused on getting it right, and loads of them did. Some of them didn't and needed help, and then some of them got it wrong, didn't want to listen to the rules, and they're the ones that ended up with the improvement notices. And again, then they improved and were allowed to reopen. Partnership working again was first rate on this. Our colleagues in the police really assisted us, and we couldn't have been as effective as we were if it wasn't for our colleagues in the police. And also environmental health was sending us information about where there were clusters, and we would do investigations. And then one of those investigations was our second big piece of work, and that was on a really good, usually pub bar called Breeze. It had a really good system in place, but it just wasn't quite managed well enough. So when somebody walked in who had COVID, they went to a VIP area just on a mezzanine up in the upstairs, and they were allowed to mix freely. And then mixing freely, that person then gave COVID to several other people. So again, we investigated, we took them to license review, and their license was suspended a fortnight this time. So that's where we were with the pubs indoors. And then infections started. This is within about October, November then. We had the firebreak lockdown because they could see that the infections were rising. So a couple of weeks, everybody went back to the first lockdown, and then they reopened. And in that reopen period, it felt really, we could really see the second wave coming. All the businesses were busy. The restaurants were packed out. The pubs were packed out. All socially distant, but as they should be, but busy. And then all the food shops leading up to Christmas, everybody's buying the presents, everybody's getting the festive food and drinking. It was really busy, and then they locked us down. So in all that time, my officers have been just incredibly busy. We've learned quite a lot. We've seen this legislation. Usually when we're waiting for legislation, we wait for a couple of years, and we have consultations, we speak to businesses. It all comes along, at a reasonable pace. But this time, it was there would be new rules on the Monday, and that was the day that the new rules were in. So we were informing the businesses of the new rules that were in that day, and that meant that our approach to enforcement was very important. There's something that the police do that we've borrowed from them, and it's called the 4 E's approach to enforcement, where you engage, you explain, you encourage, and when that doesn't work, then you enforce. So if you think back to the percentages of compliance, you can see the 74% is the engagement. The 16% is the encouragement, where we ask them to get it right, and then only in that final 10% do we have to do the enforcement. And of course, the enforcement is quite upsetting for the businesses. It takes us a lot of time, so it's good to get those other 3 E's out of the way. We've had help from Welsh Government. They've given us enforcement funding. That was really, really useful. We brought in some excellent officers to help us. And then the final sort of point I would like to make is I've really seen the teams that I'm managing really come into their own during this last year. I've seen the team managers and the officers being tireless, being absolutely fantastic. Their commitment, enthusiasm and professionalism have been first rate, and I really believe that their work has made Newport a safer place to live and work. So that's everything from me. I'm sorry it was more than 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
I tried to speak as fast as I could. So there we go.
Sorry,
thank you.
Hey, I tell you what, Matthew, I'm going to open it up now to questions, but I don't know if everybody agrees with me, but that was genuinely really interesting. So, like, honestly, thank you. And on behalf of all of the committee, thank you for, if you could pass on our thanks to your colleagues and to yourself for everything that you've done. That was really interesting. I've got a couple of questions, but what I'd like to do is open it up, and then members normally ask the questions that maybe I was going to, and then you don't need any from me. So I think Councillor Hyatt has indicated that he has a question, followed by Councillor Whitcutt.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, first of all, I'd like to thank Matthew for his wonderful report and the brilliant work he's doing along with his team. The £1,000 fines that we issued out, how likely are they to be paid, and will we be enforcing them?
They're very likely to be paid. It's something that we're monitoring. People have got to pay them within 28 days. Or they get prosecuted for non-payment of fine. So we have had businesses that have struggled to pay the fines. We've taken representations from them, and there was one business that actually got a double fine because they were sort of fined by the police, and then we came along. Therefore our fine was £2,000 because it sort of escalates. So we worked with that business and we thought, well, that's not, it's not like they're TK Maxx or something. They weren't the biggest business in the world. So we were able to negotiate and we issued them with a £1,000 fine, trying to be proportionate. And not jump in with the £2,000 or finish off with the 2,000. So we're negotiating with them to make sure that they pay. And then there was another business, an off-license business that was fined, and they agreed to pay £200 per week, not per week, per month for 5 months. So we're trying. We've got to stand firm, but we've also got to be responsible and fair. So I think it's very likely they'll be paid, because the alternative is they get prosecuted, and we don't want that to happen, because what happens then, if we have to take officers off patrol to then to put together a prosecution pack, that means there's less patrols. So we would rather negotiate it. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Chair.
That's a really good question. Thank you, and thank you, Matthew, for that concise answer. Councillor Whitcutt, Mark, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Matthew, for the for the update. And I do think actually that you do a very, very important job, because you are at the sharp end of trying to keep this community safe, and all of us. You started off by saying that there was I think it was 74% compliance, and that there was a group of 16% who didn't comply, and 10% of those warranted further attention. I take it from what you've said that is mainly in the sort of pub and club sector, or would I be wrong about that?
There was a time where the pub and it just depends at what point in time it came. In that autumn period, there were a lot of pub and clubs who were getting it wrong, and we issued improvement notices. But I could do in the link in the papers that I sent round. That's a link to the where all the improvement notices are listed, so you could see there where, you know, what the percentages were. If I haven't got that figure, I can get that figure and send it through, but my instinct is it's half of the businesses were licensed premises, you know, where we issued the improvement notices and closure notices, and the other half were all the others. So it was such a difficult thing for them to get right, but lots of them did, but it was so difficult because, of course, the joke I said about people mixing households, that was really true. And I went out on inspections with the officers, and you would say, well, we went to one pub and there was a group of 6 people, and we said, well, they're obviously not part of the same household. And then the licensee said, well, I asked them and they said they were. I said, but I've just seen one of them walk in and sort of actually say, I haven't seen you for months, and they all hugged. I said, you can't possibly, you know, so, but he'd asked them and they'd lied to him. So it is such a difficult, it was such a difficult thing for the pubs to do, to get right, but some of them did. So I think so, about half and half. But what I can do, Councillor, is I can just put that together and break down which sectors they were. I have done that in the past, so I could get that information.
Follow-up, Chair.
Yeah, go on, no, Mark.
Just ask a follow-up, Chair.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I don't want to put you to any more work than you've already got, because you've got a massive amount of work. So if that's too much work for you, please, you know, just don't do it. That, you know, I'm grateful for your comments here today, and you're doing a fantastic job. But I just wanted to ask you about the supermarkets, really, because they've remained open throughout. And if you go into some supermarkets, I'm not going to mention names, and maybe it's the case with all of them, because obviously nobody uses absolutely every one of them, but the ones I go into, it says outside something like no mask, no entry. And then you go in there and you see people wandering around with no masks on. So I just wondered if you might be able to, I don't know whether you know exactly what the regulations are. I assume you would do on that, and what the rights of the supermarkets are to deal with it. And then if as a result of what you said, I think there's an issue, perhaps I can email you about some of the things that I've found. But if you could comment on that, I'd be really grateful.
Okay, I think I can. Very early on, the supermarkets and similar businesses were really concerned that they would be having to police the regulations themselves, and that was certainly the first sort of comments that were coming from the different governments, and they pushed back against that quite a bit and said, look, well, it's the police's responsibility to make sure that members of the public are wearing face coverings and so on. But we ended up with a compromise. We issued a premises improvement notice, or tried to, with Tesco. And we had a really encouraging sort of discussion. I was speaking to their compliance director, and we came to an agreement whereby they wouldn't challenge and tell somebody in Newport to put their face covering on, but they would certainly just remind somebody that was the policy. So that's where we got to at the beginning, is that the supermarket staff weren't challenging people, but they were encouraging people, reminding them of the policy. And then a little bit later, because this was quite difficult for the supermarkets, they then were told by legislation that they had to challenge, you know, that it was part of their safe systems of work. So it was brought into the general health and safety requirements. So and that's when you saw people start the notices saying no mask, no entry. But you are allowed, you have to wear a face covering if you're able to. So if you've got some kind of medical condition that means breathing freely without a face covering makes it difficult, it's impossible, then you are allowed to enter shops. You know, and you would explain that to the if you were challenged, to the shop. The problem is people lie, don't they? So So if there was somebody walking through a supermarket without a face covering, I would expect them to be challenged. But what would I expect if somebody says, I've got asthma? And we would not expect Tesco then. I'm sorry I'm picking on Tesco because they're the ones I had the really informative chat with. But we wouldn't expect them to see medical cards or anything like that. So the challenge is enough. But if you see the odd person not wearing a face covering, you can almost assume that that's okay. But if you see lots of people in a supermarket without face coverings, then you think actually there's something wrong with that store. So does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Councillor?
I mean, since you mentioned them, I saw 3 people in a group who clearly weren't related walking around Tesco's, young people without face masks on. And when I got in there, I saw another 2 people. This was last week, without masks. And I have raised it. And actually, to be fair, the security guard said that we do ask people if there's a reason why they haven't got a face mask on. He said, unfortunately, an awful lot of people lie. And I mean, the thing is, what can you say about that?
Yeah, it is quite difficult. A business has always got the right to refuse entry, of anybody onto their premises. But it is quite difficult. You want to be open. You open your business, don't you, in order to welcome people in, and to turn that into pushing people away and calling them liars is quite difficult for businesses. Yeah. We're very, even though we've done quite a lot of enforcement, we're very sympathetic with the difficult position businesses have been placed in. But we can always remind, it's what we're doing, regularly. We send out waves of messaging, so we can remind if people are seeing. It's quite important at the moment that we don't let our guard down. So there's no harm in reminding the supermarkets of what the rules are. And I can say that we've had intelligence, and I'll describe what you've said, and use that as a reason for them to pass the messaging on to their staff. So I will do that, Councillor.
Thank you, Matthew. And thank you, Mark. They were no need to apologise. They were good questions. John, we'll come back to you. Charles has indicated. So, Charles, do you have a question?
Yeah, sort of one rolls into another effectively. I suppose really, Matthew, the situation has sort of diffused itself in as much as now with regards to pubs and clubs, because nobody's open. Yeah.
Yes, we've been in we've been in a lull with COVID enforcement, and what that has allowed us to do, because every now and again people forget that we're a trading standards and licensing service, so we've got all our other work that we're doing, and what we've done quite a bit of work with illegal tobacco over the last couple of months. So we've used the opportunity of that lull because of the lockdown to get through some of our other sort of high risk normal work, so, and now we're bracing ourselves for the reopening. So we've used that as an opportunity.
As regards that, have you stood down your team? I was bumped into an old friend, an ex-policeman. He was telling me he was on COVID surveillance for the borough, and I couldn't think of a better bloke to have actually. But doing that, but are the teams being stood down, or are they still in the city's employ?
Oh no, we've had the COVID compliance officers. So we've had 2 ex-police officers join us, Andy and Phil, both absolutely brilliant. Yeah. They're going to carry on until the end of June, and then they might carry on until the end of September, but we'll do it on a month-by-month basis. Then we're readying ourselves for quite a complicated enforcement and engagement approach. As we go out of as we come out of lockdown, so as the easements, and every easement there will be like a little uptick in infections, and it's our job to make sure that's got nothing to do with businesses. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think they're 2 excellent blokes. They'd be well worth hanging on to for as long as this lasts, and God knows how long that's going to be.
we've always got room for good people, so we're doing our best for them.
Obviously, Charles has got no interest to declare there at all.
No interest whatsoever.
Over to John. John.
I do apologise. I can't use the hands up system.
No, we're there. Go on, John.
Okay. No, it's an excellent report, and it's very reassuring to hear that we've got this type of team in place and we've got these officers in place. I mean, I think we all need to remember that COVID has been going on for over 12 months now. And so you've had all that period of uncertainty, changing in Welsh government legislation, advice and all the rest of it. And I think what I've read in that period of time has reassured me that, for example, engagement and improvement, that system works, and we've been very proactive with that. And just to pinch a phrase from the report, I mean, I've no doubt in my mind that our team's efforts, our trading standard team's efforts, have made Newport a safer place to live and work. And I think that's a genuine statement that sums up where we're at on this unfortunate COVID situation.
Thank you, Councillor.
Are there any more questions from any members? No. Well, Graham, are you flashing?
Yeah. I was just trying to get my microphone on and say, yes, I got a question.
Hey, got that.
Okay. Something that was widely used in industry when I was a member of that fraternity was a post-mortem based on lessons learned. Okay. Have you got something like that? Because I got a feeling that this is going to roll on for a fair while now, and the lessons learned are going to be an active learning document. So do you have a lessons learned document?
Yes, we're doing the we evaluate, you know, sort of we've got like a cycle. So it's exactly the same thing. So what we do is when we do like a project, so a smaller piece of work, so it might be going to the barbers, you know, sort of all the work that we've done over the last week when they've reopened. So we'll have well, if I go back, when we went to the barbers last summer, we did a lessons learned, we evaluated what happened there, and then what we noticed that we identified all the businesses that were in that 10%, and then we flagged them up, and so we decided that they were the ones that needed extra help and enforcement, and then we also saw the ones where we were absolutely really confident, you know, that they were complying. So when we did when we did our lessons learned, then we then decided, well, when, you know, sort of when this lockdown happened and they reopen, we know exactly which businesses we have to go to, and we contacted them all beforehand and just reminded them of all the rules so they could open up on day one, you know, sort of and be compliant. So we do it on a smaller scale, sort of, case by case, and, you know, project by project. And then we operate the intelligence model, the national intelligence model, and part of that is the evaluation. So we're then looking at things from like the Newport, you know, from 6 months, you know, we're looking at, we have like team debriefs. So that's what we're doing in Newport. And I'm also part, with my colleague Rhys Thomas, who's looking after environmental health and community safety, we're part of the Public Protection Wales framework, and they're looking at things on them, you know, sort of on the city and the countryside level, and they've got a lessons learned sort of. So it's something that's embedded in what we do. We evaluate on the little things, and then we also evaluate on the big things. So it's definitely part of our culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a great answer, and it's nice to know that you are, in fact, going across borders even to talk about these things and build that list. Well done.
That's great. Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. Matthew, that was genuinely really quite interesting. I was going to ask about learning, and I think all members have raised other points that I was going to raise. I suppose, as you've explained about the barber shops, and you know, you've recognised that these businesses, that particular one you might have difficulty with, so you were able to preempt that. As we open up to a larger degree from mid-April, Well, what's your sort of feeling? Are you prepared? And do you feel as if we're going to have any more bumps in the road? I know you can't predict, but you know,
right. We feel that if they just reopened as they planned without us being here, then if you think of that 76, you know, sort of 76, 16, 10, that will just happen over and over again, and then that 26% that weren't getting it right will cause, you know, clusters of infections and that sort of thing. That will just happen. So if we weren't involved, I think there would be bumps in the road. But we're focusing on the licensed premises reopening. We've spoken to the police. We're going to speak to the hospitality sector very soon. And the idea is that we'll have open sessions like this on MS Teams. We'll have one for the city centre. So anybody, any business in the city centre can come onto a Teams meeting. We'll say stuff, the police will say stuff. They'll be able to ask us questions. We'll have an identical one for the non-city city centre. So that will mean everybody's had an opportunity to get in touch with us. And then for all the businesses who we've issued improvement notices or near misses, places that nearly got an improvement notice, we'll identify those, and they will have one-to-one sessions with us before they open. The whole plan is there will be bumps in the road, to go back to your question, but we're trying to make them as small as possible.
Honestly, the learning appears to be incredible. So, like, again, pass on the committee's thanks to your team and to you, and like, thank you. That was really, really interesting. You're welcome to stay if you want, but I'm sure you've got other things to do. But
we've just had a big seizure of illegal tobacco, and they're in the room next door counting it. So I want to go and have a look, see what's happening.
That's a big thing, isn't it? But we won't get onto that now.
No. Okay.
No.
All right. Oh, thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Matthew. That was excellent. Thank you. Okay. But that was interesting, wasn't it, members? Right. The next thing that we're on to is item number 5, which is the active travel report. I believe we've got Joe, who's the department head, in this particular area, Leah and Luke, and obviously Paul. We've got quite a full house there from your team there, Paul, today.
I know, it's normally just me, isn't it? It's nice to feel
I know, yeah, we do.
Nice
We like.
I'm not going to say much at all this time, Chair. I'm just going to pass over to the team. They've been really involved in this project, so I'm going to let Joe kick off, and they'll run you through it.
Okay, cool. Are you going to open, Joe? So again, like 5-10 minutes overview, and then I'll open it up to questions. Okay, and this isn't a grilling session, it's like an information session. I know that all you guys have had quite a lot of contact with Luke, and all you guys are busy, so thank you for taking the time to come along today. Over to you, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Luke, could you share the screen, please, for the presentation? I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to the committee today about the work that the team are doing on increasing the opportunities for active travel in Newport. So making the presentation today will be me, Joe Gossage. I'll be supported by Luke Stacey, who is our Access Development Officer, and also by Leah Young, who is our Active Travel Officer. So we'll give you a brief overview of what the Act means. We'll have a little run through of the works that we've done in the last 5 to 6 years. And then we'll tell the committee how we are preparing to undertake future work, starting with the work next year, which is only about a week and a half away. Okay, next slide, please, Luke. So what exactly is active travel? As the name suggests, it's to travel actively. It's mostly walking, mainly through walking and cycling, but there are other means as well. And rather than me describing this in detail, we actually have a short animation which we'd like to share with you. It might take us a little bit over the the whole 10 minutes, but it might push our time towards the 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, right.
If we could share that, please, Luke and Leah. We're trying desperately to manage the technology here, Chair. I think Leah's got the animation to show you. Thank you.
To jump in the car to go to work, college, take the kids to school or go to the shops? Ask yourself, do you really need to take the car? If it's a short journey, could you walk or cycle instead? As part of the Welsh Government's Active Travel Act, here at Newport City Council, we've been working hard to improve the walking and cycling routes around the city with minimal disruptions. Once complete, not only will the routes be better, safer and more accessible for all, but they should speed up your journey too. Active travel means making journeys by physically active means, like walking or cycling. If you build active travel into your everyday journeys, it will improve your physical health, support your mental well-being, help the environment, and enhance the local community and economy. We're investing in active travel in Newport. Now it's over to you to leave the car at home. Visit newport.gov.uk for more information.
Okay, thank you, Leah. So that animation gives you a basic overview of what this is all about. The main act, which came in, it was enacted in 2014, places a number of duties on the local authority to facilitate active travel, and this is mainly by creating, upgrading, mapping and promoting the routes and the activity overall. In order for us to be able to identify the schemes that we want to take forward and to build and make it happen, we've undertaken a number of consultation events over the last 5 years. The first of these was in 2015, where we identified the existing route network, and the second was in 2017, where we looked at the integrated network map, or the proposed, they were the proposed routes. So these major consultation exercises gave us this information on new routes. It's what the public had put forward as the routes that they wanted us to build. The first thing we had to do was look at the feasibility of each of these routes. We looked at the connectivity, and most importantly, we looked at how accessible they were, because a real strong push for active travel is access for all. So this is people for all ages and all abilities. So what we've done over the last 5 years, we've engaged in a programme of improvements to the routes. So if Luke, could you share the next slide, please? Thank you. So as you see, in 2015, the red lines show where we had existing routes, and the blue lines showed where people were asking us to put in new routes. I'm pleased to say that quite a lot of the blue routes there have now been transformed into real routes on the ground. And what that has done is increased the amount of the number of kilometres that are available for active travel across Newport by well over 13 kilometres more route of more route. So what Luke is going to do now is just run through the projects that these blue lines, if you like, on the plan are in reality. Some of them you'll be familiar with, and others that you may not know. So Luke, if you'd like to share that, please.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So as Joe's mentioned, through the consultations, we have been carrying out a number of improvement projects, and on this slide you can see the ones that we have done to date, the ones we're currently working on, and our future plans. And I'll just go through some of these to provide a little bit more information. So the Cardiff to Newport links obviously two highly populated areas where we'll see a lot of people wanting to travel sustainably. So we've carried out a number of improvements to routes between Cardiff and Newport, and a lot of those have been improvements to existing green lanes. And through restricting vehicular access on them, we can provide safe off-road and quite pleasant routes. between Cardiff and Newport. Moving into the city centre, the Lisbury City Circular Missing Link was a project which really provided that, well, as it says, the missing link between Lisbury and the city centre circular. And also in the Lisbury area, we've also looked at Black Ash Park, improving the routes through there and providing bridges over the Lisbury Pill. So to the south of the SDR, we've looked at Nash Road and providing a off-road shared route to the college, and then parallel to that on Corporation Road, a route down to all the places of employment there. And then we've also looked at development of routes through Shaftesbury Park in Crindau, connecting to the existing cycle link to Killian, known as the Connect 2 route. In Newport, we're blessed to have the canal, which is excellent for recreation, but also provides really good links across the city for cycling and walking. And so a lot of our projects have focused on how we can improve this, even just by improving the surface. You're making it more accessible to so many more people. And we've also looked at connecting to the canal and routes like Brickyard Lane and Bettis Lane. And to date, we resurfaced the canal from Caerphilly all the way through to Barrack Hill, which then goes on to connect to the city centre. And as I'll get on to later, our future plans are looking at what we can do in the northern section of the canal through Bettis and Malpas. Coed Melyn is a route that we've developed recently, and while we look to improve existing routes, we also want to create as many new routes off-road and safe as possible. And that's what we're able to do in Coed Melyn open space to provide that path. And the key standout feature of that path at the moment has been the installation of the lighting. Obviously, in the winter months, commuting in the early hours or the late hours, it is inevitably going to be a bit dark. So providing lighting is a real important way of encouraging users to use these paths and ensure that they're as safe as possible. But we have to be considerate of the ecology and the nocturnal ecology that might be using that area. And that's something we have to think about with all our projects. And the lighting that we've used, which I think is the first instance of using it in Wales, and a lot of other authorities are now looking at this, is low level and it lights the path, but it doesn't then spread the light to the surrounding area and then affecting things like bats, badgers and other nocturnal creatures. Moving on to projects that are currently in build and just on the ground at the moment, we've got Devon Place Footbridge, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. That's very much in the sort of development stage, a lot of ground investigations, things like that. And that's ongoing at the moment. We are looking at improvements around the 14 Locks Canal Centre. At the moment, the visitor centre is a little bit disconnected from the towpath itself, so we're looking at how we can consolidate those access links. We've got some new routes going through Tredegar Park and connecting it to the old golf course on the other side of the M4, which will link then up to the top of Forge Road. And we've also got a ramp coming from the SDR down onto the Monkey Island open space and linking it underneath, which at the moment, if you're familiar with the area, if you want to cross from the north to the south of the SDR, there's about 6 or 7 traffic light crossings, and it can take, if you're unlucky and you catch it at the wrong time, it can take about an extra 10 minutes of your journey, and knocking that kind of time off a commuter route is really important. And we're also looking at a route across Gare Fort open space, which will connect to Coed Melyn at one end, travel along the base of the site, following the line of the railway, and then connecting to Wells Close at the other end. And then looking to next year, as Joe mentioned, only a couple of weeks ago now, but we've actually found out this week we've secured just under £10 million worth of funding. A big chunk of that is the continuation of Devon Place Footbridge, so that's really good news. But we're also looking at new routes through Lisbury Pond, through and across the Newport International Sports Village. As I said earlier, we're looking at improvements to the northern canal through Bettis and Malpas and improving the surface, but also links to and from that. There's a range of city centre improvements that we're looking at, linking to Devon Place, but also through to the centre. And we're also going to be doing some further work at 14 Locks Canal Centre to to do the final improvements to that area. So yeah, that's all the sort of works that we've got going on. I mean, there's a lot there, so hopefully I've provided a little bit more context to it.
Thanks, Nick.
No problem, and that's all from me.
Cheers. Joe, are you carrying on, or
Sorry, Chair. It's we're handing over to Leah now. There's just some images there of some of the routes that you may or may not be familiar with. The one on the left-hand side, as I'm looking at it, is the Coed Melon route. The artist's image of Devon Place is on that side, and as Luke said, we've secured quite considerable amount of funding for that, just announced this weekend. And there we've got the new surfaced route at 14 locks. So if Leah is going to talk now about the Active Travel Network review, which is going on at the moment. Thanks, Leah.
Thanks, Joe. So as Joe said, the Active Travel Network map review is currently live for Newport. We went live on the 27th of January. So as part of the Welsh Government Active Travel consultation, we're engaging with partners, public, people with protected characteristics and children to really encourage them to walk and cycle more. So the new network map will help us create a safe and attractive environment for both walking and cycling in Newport. And it's a three-stage process. So the initial stage, which we're currently in, we're looking for feedback from all stakeholders, as I said, public and the public, on barriers that are preventing them from walking and cycling in their area. And based on that feedback, we'll propose a first draft of the Active Travel Network map review for Newport. The Active Travel Network map will then go into statutory consultation with Welsh Government in autumn of this year, before the final map is handed over to Welsh Government by the end of the year. So what I'm going to do is just play you a short video which we commissioned as part of this work. It went out on all our social media sites to really encourage as many people as possible to participate. So I'm just going to play the video for you.
Oh, very good. This is good, isn't it?
Get more people across Newport using active travel for their everyday journeys, be it walking to school, cycling to work or popping to the shops. Here at Newport City Council, we've been working hard to increase the number of walking and cycling routes across the city, but we know there's more we need to do to improve the infrastructure. So before we embark on our next round of improvements, we want to hear your thoughts. It doesn't matter if you use our existing routes or not, or whether you currently walk, cycle or drive across our city. We want as many people as possible to have their say. Local residents, employers, schools, walking and cycling groups, community groups, everyone. Through our Active Travel Network map review, you'll be able to let us know if you have any issues with our existing routes and what improvements you feel could be made. You'll also be able to let us know what new routes you feel could be added, which would enable you to make more journeys on your bike or on foot. By answering a series of questions, we'll be able to understand the barriers you face which stop you from cycling and walking places, as well as what we can do to support you in making more everyday journeys through active travel. From the data we get, we'll be able to plan our next steps, prioritising the issues and improvements that need to be made, as well as identifying feasible new routes to introduce to our network. The more responses we receive, the better the needs of the whole community will be reflected. So please visit our consultation page and have your say today.
Okay, so Luke will just share again if we can go on to the next slide, please, Luke. Okay, so what I just want to do now is bring to life for you how we're currently performing in terms of the consultation. So to date, we've received 2,383 visitors to our site. We've had a total contribution of 2,167. People have left 412 comments. In 2017 consultation, we had 69 comments, so we've had a huge increase. And 1,755 people have agreed with the comments that have been left. You'll see on the chart the age groups that are contributing to the site. We do have a gap in terms of 16 to 24-year-olds, which I'll talk to you a little bit more in terms of how we're looking to engage those further. If we can just go on to the next slide, please, Luke.
No, that's about right.
Okay, so this is, go on. So this is the geographical spread of responses. Really interesting. I think you'll agree. We've seen a significant gain either side of the river, so the inner city link. So, for example, in 2017 for Liswerry, we had 4 responses. To date for this year, we've had 28. For Pill, we had 6 in 2017, and to date we've had 18. So I think that evidences that people are using the active travel routes that have been implemented in those areas and are keen to use active travel as a different mode of transport. Rogerstone, you can see, is doing extremely well. It also did well in 2017. We had 22 responses then, we've had 55 from Rogerstone to date. So if we can just move on to the next slide, please, Luke. So this is the final slide. So next steps then, the video that you've seen today is on the council's website. We continue to send it out via social media outlets. We're also doing more engagement with schools to really reach the age group, you know, that's lacking in the 16 to 24s, to see what more support we can provide. And another video is going live on the social media outlet site, just aimed at teenagers. We're then going to start analysing all of the data to produce the first draft of the network map, and we'll go back out then for public consultation. Once that's finalised, once that's closed, we will submit our approved active travel network map into statutory consultation, as I said, with Welsh Government. And the deadline for doing all of this is December of this year.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll leave you now for any questions.
Leah, thank you. Luke, thank you. And Joe, thank you very much as well. Seriously, I mean, we should do this more often, shouldn't we, Scrutiny members? This is actually like really, really interesting and good. Not that it's not normally, but right. I think Mark, you've indicated first of all with some with a question.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say that that I've used the I've walked around the Coed Melyn Park route, which is in Charles's ward. I'm glad that we've got a sort of Schengen arrangement between the Gare and Alterine, so you don't need a passport just because to pass between the two. But seriously, no, it is an excellent it is an excellent facility, because that's basically what it is, and it's very pleasant, and it seems to be well used. When I've walked around there've been family groups, and you know, it's a very pleasant and also sort of an environment where you've sort of got you've almost got the country within the town in a sense, and it sort of takes you into these little pockets of woodland and so on, and wends its way around in a very compliant manner or sympathetic manner as far as the surrounding landscape is concerned. So I was very, very impressed with that, and I think it's an excellent idea. I'd like to know more details about the the route across the Gare Hillfort, which is in my ward, and just a quick quickly to flag up a typo that on your initial slide showing the list that you have spelt Gare as gear, and it is G-A-E-R. So just
Mark,
to point, I'm sure you can easily sort that out.
What would have happened if you didn't pick up on that?
Well, I don't know. I think the world might have ended. Actually, no?
Councillor, I think we've actually renamed the ward. That's what it is. Yeah.
The people of Maze Glass might be happy with that, but I don't think the people of the Gare will.
Anything else, Mark?
No, it was just that just that comment. Thanks, Chair. It's excellent presentations, by the way, today, and thank you for that. And can I also just thank City Services really for the work that they're doing in the middle of the current pandemic under difficult circumstances. And also the provision of these extra waste bins is very, very welcome. I just wanted to sort of flag that up.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Mark. Is there anybody else? Nobody's indicated as yet. I can't see. Mark was the last one. Does anybody else got any questions, comments to make? Right, yeah, Councillor Hyatt, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank Paul and his team for the brilliant work they're doing. Chair, I just wanted to point out.
You've dropped out, Councillor Hyatt.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Obviously, once with Coed Melon and the 14 locks and everything, all the other brilliant things that we got here in our area, we need to make sure that it is promoted and promoted extensively. The amount of work that goes into these fantastic establishments need to get out to the public so then everybody can utilize them. And I think we just need to hit it home again and again and again for people to stop using other forms of travel and try cycling, try walking, and experience the routes. And maybe that we could have sort of guided tours of the area once they're all been established, to give people that incentive to say, look how beautiful it is, how safe it is, and how wonderful it is for their children and their future generations.
Very passionate there, Councillor, and quite correct. And more of a comment than a question, but thank you ever so much. Charles?
Yeah. All good stuff. I hope we stay in the Schengen Agreement and we can still walk up to the Gare. It's, in my opinion, the Gare is probably the most underappreciated facet of the city. Where else can you walk on an Iron Age fortress, and such a good example of one with panoramic views? I think we should make more of that, but that's another hobby horse. Will we be putting out more dog waste bins, and will we be seeing that they get emptied more frequently?
Charles, you're talking specifically now on these routes, yeah? Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair enough question.
Joe? Do you want me to come back? Do you want me to come back, Chair? So across the board, we are trying to stick out more bins. We don't stick dog waste specific bins. No. We have general ones. I suppose it does raise an interesting question, doesn't it? Because whilst it's great to get money from Welsh Government to upgrade these routes, one of the problems we've been dealing with over the pandemic is the fact that people are walking more, are using these routes more, and it's much more difficult to maintain. And so we've got to understand the revenue costs of these and address that and build that into the future. What we've seen is quite a shift away from, us emptying the city centre bins to us emptying these more difficult bins along these routes. And that's something for us to take in board as we're planning them. And I suppose the purpose of this consultation is for people to put down their issues, and it may be that may be one of their issues. They'd like to use the route more. They'd like more bins on there, and I think it's really important that we build off what the public want, because you often challenge us as officers. You do this through this scrutiny committee and through others. Is how do we engage with the public? This is a great tool to use, as it looks like half of Rogerstone's already done. For people to actually put their comments on, and for us to, and then that builds that into what we can apply for funding for. So this is really driven by the public. And so what I'd like you to take away, councillors, is the points you're raising is ask your constituents, register on here, put their comments. So it's really easy to use, and then that informs what gets delivered. So
yeah.
Could I add on to that, Chris, please?
Of course you can, Charles. Go on.
Thank you very much. I wonder really, I mean, you've got a thing about dog waste, good grief. I wonder really, is there any sort of mileage in explaining to the public that they can put their dog packets in standard refuse and not purely dedicated dog waste bins?
Yeah, well, there are virtually, all the bins are for mixed waste now, so we can look at how we promote that more. I can take that away, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Charles, thank you.
Yep, thank
Anybody
you.
else?
Yes.
Thank you, Charles. Anybody else?
Yeah, Chair.
Oh, here we go. Graham, I was waiting for you. That's why I kind of...
I thought, hey, come on, my hand is raised there. Why aren't you picking on me?
It's not up in the little box here, but never mind. Go on, we're ready for you. Go on.
Name the box, that's right. Now then, how can the public get involved in the survey or questionnaire or consultation that you're looking for? Can you please reiterate that for me? Because when I heard the numbers, I felt they were quite low. And if it needed a bit of a push through the normal systems at ward level, then let me know.
Well, we want as many people involved as possible, but I would say, for us as a council consultation, 2,500 is pretty good going so far to Leah. So, but Leah, if you can you just run through how they log on?
Yeah, of course. So on the Newport City Council website, there is a dedicated page on there for the Active Travel Network map review. You can go into it from the Active Travel page and the link takes you straight into the survey.
Sounds good, and it's a simple thing to do. I'll be on there tonight.
Great, thank you.
Well done, great, thank you. Anybody else? I think we've covered just about everybody. It's great. I'll just say a few things. I think there's maybe some suggestions. The reason why we got such good numbers so far from Rogerstone is because we have been pushing it, because it's a way of people come to us with what they perceive to be a problem, and it's a way of offering a potential solution without over-promising. I have to say that I haven't worked with you in the past, but I look forward to in the future. I've worked with Luke, who's been like really good. He's come out on a few occasions. You drop him an email and he's back within literally a few hours. So I don't needlessly sort of praise anyone. So thank you, Luke. And indeed, Joe, working with you and other team members of yours, particularly Jenny, recently as regards another potential project. Thank you. It does genuinely mean a lot. You can't give us all of the answers. But it's been useful. Leah, for you, something that might be of use in order to get those numbers up from 16 plus. Can I suggest that you send it to the Youth Council? The Youth Council have got a great social media channels and so on, and are actually engaging with people within their peer groups, their cohort, quite well. So that might be of use. And I'm also aware that, particularly in Basleg, but all of the schools have eco councils. And the link between active travel and environment and the work of the eco councils, there's obviously a clear synergy there. So maybe might suggest that you might want to send it out to the eco councils in the schools as well.
Just to reassure you, we've gone both to the youth councils and the eco councils, and we're continuing to liaise with them to push as much as possible. So thank you for that. Yeah, but they are absolutely
If you send an email to the youth council, if you want a copy, anyway, I can bring it to their attention.
Thank you.
But that's it's great, and thank you for everything that you do. It's good news, isn't it? Thank you everyone, and Paul, you've had 2 good meetings so far. We left you alone. So we'll just come back in case there's anything else that anybody wants to ask. Is everybody okay? No. Okay. Well, thank you, and sorry to have gone 9 minutes into your evening, but and thank you for everything that you're doing, guys. Seriously, you know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. We'll leave you go now, and then we'll come back to the conclusions. You can stay if you want to, but I'm sure you've got things to do. There we go. Well, there we go, guys. I think, you know, that was genuinely really, really good, wasn't it? And probably a better session than I expected. So thank you for all your constructive questions. So we've got the conclusion of the committee and the reports. I mean, is there anything anybody wants amplified to take forward? I personally suggest that it could be just as read, and Neil and Co will obviously to take the notes and put them forward as they are. Is everybody okay with that? Everyone okay? Yeah. Neil, are you okay with that?
That's fine, Chair. I note that.
There's nothing I think that urgent, unless, Charles, you want the need for for general waste, including dog waste, to be amplified on these routes.
Could be, yes. I think that'd be fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be quite a strong point, actually, mightn't it?
Yeah.
Right,
we're turning into the slobs of Europe. I'm sorry to say. It's you know, there we are.
It is a good point, actually, because it's potentially great. Well, it is great work, isn't it? But if you're out walking your dog or whatever else, and there isn't a bin nearby, and I think the point that Paul made about future-proofing it, to make sure that we can maintain these things moving forward is obviously key. So maybe that as well, Neil. Yeah. But I really enjoyed that. I mean, what was your kind of view? Your views? I really enjoyed those two sessions. We might drop some like these in again in the future, Neil. Right. So that's the conclusion. Scrutiny advisor reports. Neil, is that you? Is it? What have you got to advise us on?
Yes, Chair. The next two meetings coming up for us on Monday, the 7th of June. We've got the 21 service plan end of year reviews. Yeah. So we'll have the two service areas coming in like we did last time for the mid-year performance reviews. And we'll also just have a quick look at the draft annual forward work programme for 2021 to 22, just to give a brief overview of what's on the upcoming forward work programme, if there's anything the committee would further like to look at as well, so we can discuss that. And then also on the 21st of June, we'll have the second part of the service plan end of year reviews. So as per last time, we'll have the 3 service areas coming to that meeting.
All right, that's cool. So that's the forward work programme basically for the next sort of couple of months, isn't it? I think that's about it then. Is there anything else, Neil?
Unless there's anything else the committee would like to talk about. No, we can close the meeting, Chair.
Yeah. And our next meeting is when?
Next meeting will be the Monday, the 7th of June at 4 o'clock.
There we are. We'll be late for summer then, with things opened up perhaps and an all new outlook. But we'll wait and see. Thank you, everybody. I've genuinely really enjoyed this meeting, as I do most of them. And go on, Mark.
Can I just say one thing? I've got a problem then, because I've got a full trial hearing that I'm representing someone in the Cardiff Employment Tribunal. Right. So I'm not going to be able to make that meeting.
Well, we'll take your apologies in advance there, Mark.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry, Chair. Which one of those meetings would that be?
On the 7th of June.
The 7th of June. No problem. I'll note that. Thank you.
Yeah.
There we are. Right then, we'll have a good evening, everybody. I think it's going to get a bit wet towards the end of the week, so maybe go out and do some active travelling tonight, but while you can.
Before we go,
oh, go on, Charles. Go on.
I was wondering if I could ask Ibrahim. Did I see him on TV? He was in an auction. I didn't see him bid, but there was a televised